Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to my Game Week 10 team selection video. I'm recording this on Thursday evening in India. Happy Diwali to all our Indian viewers and listeners. So, the Carabao Cup games have finished and they were quite eventful in terms of injuries and implications. And I think the pod was the earliest we had it for a while on Monday. Our thoughts have developed significantly since then, depending on the matches, etc., and going more of the data. So, let's talk about it now. But first, let's have a look back at the week that's gone. Game week 9 got me 61 points. Keeping Saka, I think, was finally rewarded. He came up with 9 points. Palmer also scored. He was my transfer in. Ait Nouri was also one of the transfers, but I benched him. Played Mikalenko over. The clean sheet odds I remember at the time were 24% for Everton, 12% for Wolves, so I don't really have any regrets about that. And again, let's look at the players from the top. Flecken, 1 point against Ipswich is concerning. The defensive data has not gotten any better once the fixtures have turned. So maybe I look to ship him on for Rhea in a few weeks, but right now the fixtures are still good for a few. Lewis Pep made a comment that with Rodri's injury, Lewis is the one player he cannot afford to rest. Whether that means a benching or a start, depending on Pep's speak, is up to you. But I think it does mean a start because they simply don't have players available. Gabriel is still a doubt going into this weekend, but all the news that is coming out of Arsenal is that the injury is not expected to be a long term one, and he should be back at the worst case on the other side of the international break. So I think you will hold him because the next two fixtures aren't that great, and I can cover him with Mikalenko and Nuri for the short term anyway. Mikalenko again, good for the short term. I think that 4.3 just fine. Rogers, good value pick. Initially, I was looking to see if I could bench him this week away to Spurs, but what was interesting was Rogers was left out of the squad completely for Villa midweek. So I think he's all right starting against Spurs, who have Van der Ven, who got injured. Saka obviously goes nowhere, but I am thinking of potentially selling him. Probably won't. We'll talk to you guys about that later. Boomo, star of the show, 15 points. Palmer with 10, with just one chance created and one shot, but great to have Palmer back in my team. Calvert-Lewin frustrating again, but with Southampton this week, I think I will give him another go. Haaland, 6 points, did not use a triple captain, felt a bit lucky. I think if you told me that 2.33 xg, would you triple captain Haaland, I'd have said yes every day of the week. So if you did triple captain him, you are very unlucky. Solanke continues to frustrate. I think he's had one shot in total since I brought him in. But again, like Calvert-Lewin, I think I have to give him the Ipswich fixture next week. If you want to get rid of him, I totally understand, but I think I have to prioritize other moves. But as they say in Tropic Thunder, never go double dom. Not looking good right now. Semenyo and Nuri are both on a yellow card each. Semenyo is going to be a key player over the coming week, so that is more of a concern. And even with Nuri now, let's say he gets booked this week and Gabriel is out next week, I'm in a bit of trouble because I don't think Greaves is going to be starting this side of the international break. So the squad is a bit thin in defense, something I have to keep in mind. This is the news I was mentioning about Gabriel from Arteta. Again, Arteta's words have to be taken with more than a pinch of salt. But the news is this was right after the game. It was still assessing him. It doesn't look bad at all. He was much better than expected, which is similar to what he said post game also. Sun is expected to be ready for this weekend, and I think this is a big boost to us Solanke owners, at least in terms of creativity and service and general functionality of the team. Similarly for Brennan owners, he sat out midweek, but is expected to be fit for the weekend. Now, the big dilemma, obviously, this week we must address, and we spoke about it on the pod, was moving Haaland out. Now, first up, let's have a look at the captaincy matrix. Now, the next couple of fixtures for Haaland are Bournemouth, Brighton. Both games, I think, in which he is captainable. The Brighton one a bit more so than Bournemouth. The thing is with Bournemouth, I've always looked at them as a good fixture for the top sides, whether they're home or away, because they're all a team that's always looked to play, and this has been true since they came to the Prem under Eddie Howe. So while City are depleted and Bournemouth have been much tighter this season, especially at home, I think it could still be a good fixture for Haaland. A couple of goals there, similarly for Brighton. And the one at Tottenham you see is not essentially blue on this fixture, but I'll probably captain Haaland over Saka that week as well. If I had Salah, that's obviously a different equation altogether because Southampton at home, they're going to look to play and there's lots of spaces for Salah there. Similar logic applies to Haaland. Tottenham will turn up to play. There's no Van der Ven, and by that side, game week 12 is on the other side of the international break. KDB and the support cast, players might start getting fit. So that's the captaincy matrix for you guys, and I want you guys to just have a loose idea of these fixtures. With Salah, The captaincy is mainly the appeal is Brighton this week and Southampton in 12. I don't like the Villa fixture as much in 11. It's a good fixture. It's right after the Leverkusen game midweek. Villa will also have a Champions League fixture, so that might mitigate that somewhat. But if you have Sun in your team for that week, well, let's say Ipswich, you can get Brighton, Ipswich, and Southampton covered. And I think that move makes a lot more sense for you. That is selling Haaland for Salah. Now let's have a look at some of the projections now. These are from at Sertal Bilal. He's one of the co-hosts of the FPL Optimized podcast. Does excellent work regarding projections. Now, a lot of you guys may not believe in projections, right? And projections are not always accurate. Obviously, now the last week we mentioned that Haaland has had the highest projections in any single fixture all season. He got 6 points, but he did register his highest XG of the season, 2.33. So there is some sort of correlation to the data and to the output. At least you would like to think so. You can completely disregard these, or but what I like to do is I don't like to make them the sole reason for my decision making, but they're definitely a factor I like to consider. I like to look at the data and then I combine that with the eye test and my own gut to make my decision. So now let's look at this data. Now this is the top three by ensemble projections. So this is not just one data source. It's a mix of the different websites that do it, these player projections. So right now in midfield, the top premium asset is projected to be Salah over the next, what, this is next 5 game weeks? Yeah, 10 to 15. So that's like 6 game weeks with 40.2 points. Salah, Palmer with 38.6, so not too far. Saka is a bit behind with 34.5. So I think, like you see, that there is clear daylight when it comes to Saka and Salah as premium assets. Whether it's worth 2.7 million, what that 2.7 million gets you is up for you to judge. Now, Eze is up here as well. These images were published on Tuesday. Subsequently, Eze has been diagnosed with a hamstring injury last night against Villa. So, how long he will be out for remains to be seen. That obviously knocks him down. But Johnson and Kulusevski are the next bets in that mid price bracket. There's not that much there right now. I'm hoping that the new manager, Anjorim, comes to Manchester United, could make Garnacho and possibly Rashford options. We'd have to look at that when it happens. Now, in the budget bracket, that is below like your 6.5 million, McNeil, Garnacho, and Rogers look to be the standout assets. So Rogers is just a good keep. But this is again the purpose of this is just to emphasize to you how much better Salah is than let's say all other premiums that are not Palmer in midfield. Now you look at up top, Haaland at 40.4 is pretty much identical in terms of projections to Salah, but at 2.7 million more. I think if you bought Haaland at 15, so for you it's about 2.5 million, right? So Watkins 9.1 million. The next Havertz, I would argue Jackson also should be up there, but possibly the minutes. Now minutes play a big part on these algorithm projections. If your minutes are lower, significantly affects your output, your EV as they call it. In mid price, Wood is about the same, let's say, as you have as Wood, Cunha, and Calvert Lewin are projected to be up right up there in the mid price. But what's interesting is Raul at 25.2 is actually projected to match almost Cunha and Wood over the next 6 game weeks. So he's looking very good value potentially. Vardy at 22.8, it's Stan Larson at 5.5, a bit behind Cunha. Look at 25 versus 21, that's about 20% less. It is significant. And with Cunha, the thing is, he's so good on the baseline bonus. Any sort of returns do mean bonus points. So I think he's worth the extra money, a lot more route to points. 90 minutes men are huge during the upcoming busy period. So if you are getting a Wolves forward, I would recommend it Cunha. And the reason I'm sharing these mid-price forward numbers is that if you're planning to do the Haaland to Salah move, you obviously need to replace Haaland with one of these forwards. So let's have a closer look at some of the projections in the upcoming slides. And a lot depends on your horizon, right? In terms of tickers, you have to look at it because I think Raul and Vissa are especially good for the short term. With Wood, you want to rotate him for his fixture, but just check out the rotation for Wood and Rogers. I think for 12, 14, 15, when Wood has Arsenal, Manchester City, and Manchester United, Rogers has Palace, Brentford, and Southampton, if I'm not mistaken. So it's never too late to get Wood, unlike what later, as I said. Now, looking at now, this is the captaincy projections again. This is by ensemble, like I mentioned to you guys, a combination of all the other sites mentioned below. Now you see, as per the projections, Salah is the top for the next three. Then you have Palmer, and Haaland is not top until you see game week 14, and even that is Nottingham Forest, who we know are a very good defensive side. So what the projections are telling you is that it's perfectly fine not to captain Haaland. Over the next few weeks, you have perfectly viable alternatives. Whether they're right or wrong, that's up to your judgment, but there is sound reasoning in the data you see over here in terms of bookies odds, in terms of underlying data, in terms of opponent strength. Algorithms factor all these into it. But I'm telling you, Haaland is not too far of all of these numbers. If Salah's 7.39, Haaland will be like 6.97 thereabouts. So whoever scores higher could come down to variance. So what really you have to look at is what is that 2.5 million getting you, what you're saving. But again, let's have a look at the closer weeks. Salah Brighton, Salah Villa. If you have Ipswich, Sun, I think do like that more. Obviously, Salah Southampton. Parma against Villa, I'm not so much on board over there. But again, Haaland that week has Liverpool. So they probably cancel each other out, especially when it's Liverpool away. So probably will go for Palmer in that week, I think. Or Sun if you have him. Boomer plays Leicester that week, as it says in the bottom projections. So definitely we all, I think, at least I have tilted towards the move for Haaland out making a lot more sense today than it did, or especially on Monday. Now with City, you also have to factor in now these numbers you're seeing again are from Sir Tabs. This is sort of the team strength projection in terms of defense and goals over the next 1, 2, 3, 6 game weeks. Now City are still ranked top in terms of offensive strength, marginally ahead of Liverpool. In terms of, like you see, Bournemouth, Brighton, I think City are at 5.2, Liverpool are at 5.3, Brighton are next home. So the thing is, Salah and Haaland, they both play Brighton. So that sort of cancels each other out. And you just look at Villa at home versus Bournemouth away. I'd say Bournemouth away is a better fixture. Tottenham at home could also be a very good fixture. Southampton away is better on paper, but Tottenham are the sort of team that I think City can exploit. So I don't think it's that clear cut, if you ask me, in terms of things. Again, a 50-50 decision which you have to make, but the form of the budget forwards is making it a lot more appealing to me. The thing though with City, Pep did mention that City are pretty much in the worst state they have been in the last 9 years he's been in charge. The injury to Savio yesterday is a big blow. I think in terms of creativity, he was a big one for them. So if you look at the entire team from back to front, it's Walker, Akanji, KDB, Rodri, Grealish, Doku, and Savio. That's 7 players missing, and potentially Guardiola, who should be fine, but there is some question mark around him as well. So City definitely are not at their best. So if you are going to go against them, now's the time. I won't put anyone off it, but I can't like wholeheartedly recommend it. That is a must to move, especially if you have only one free transfer. Now, for those of us with Calvert Lewin, as well as those of us looking to make the Haaland out move, I like these projections, I think. Now, if you look purely at game week 10, as in the immediate gratification, it's Raul, Wood, and Cunha, because the Brentford fixture obviously is a big appeal. Brentford can't defend at all this season. But now, if you look at the next 4 game weeks, right? And the next 4 game weeks, I think, is when Calvert Lewin's fixtures are still quite decent. You get the West Ham fixture, you get Southampton, and a couple of other good ones. And similarly for Raul, in the fixtures turn a little bit after that. So game week 10 to let's say 13, game week 10, 11, 12, 13, yeah. Wood, Cunha, and Raul would probably be the top scoring forwards. You look at that with Wood obviously right on top. The Arsenal fixture, if you rotate Rogers, and then the rotation looks even better, right? So if you ask me, I think that's probably the order I would go with. Wood, Cunha. Raul versus Vissa is really dependent on how much faith you have on Jimenez's minutes long term. 5.6 or 5.7 now, I think, is really good value for him. The fixtures are very good for Fulham in the next 4. Then after that, they turn a little bit when you can potentially move him on. You can decide that I'll rather have my 3 premiums in place and shuffle around these guys, because the premiums are not as dependent on fixtures. For the weaker teams, they're much more fixture dependent, right? I think the goal. So that logic makes sense. But what this also tells me as a Calvert Lewin owner, and as poor as he's been, and maybe I'm just looking for some sort of confirmation bias for the short term, that is game week 10 to game week 12, he's not a bad hold when he has Southampton, West Ham, and Brentford. So this is a sort of confirmation bias I was looking for. A blank against Southampton might push me over the edge to get in Cunha next week when Cunha has Southampton himself. But for this week, and if he delivers something, I'll probably hold. And even next week, if I have some other fires to put out, I think I will keep Calvert-Lewin. I think for the next 2 to 3, you can show faith in Calvert-Lewin. And I know it's been painful. I know it's been frustrating. I really hope he comes good this weekend. But I don't think, if you want to get rid of him for the other guys, you have no other fires, it makes sense. But he's not a must sell this week. And this is now for game week 10 to 15, 6 game weeks, cheap forwards. Again, the top is Chris Wood, Raul Klose, Cunha third, Calvert-Lewin fourth, Wissa fifth. And the thing is, from game week 12 is when Brighton will start entering the equation. If Joao Pedro is fit, if Welbeck is fit, though with Welbeck, carrying him into Christmas is a bit of a concern. But there you have it in terms of like, set and forget forwards. I think Wood is still the one to go for. Wood will love you long time. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But Raul, Cunha, Calvert-Lewin, I think my ranking is similar to what I said in the pod. I think Vista still deserves to be up there because Brentford are just creating so many chances. They're just not able to defend. And Vista is very different from Tony. Tony used to drop deep and link up a lot. Vista doesn't do that. Vista is always at the tip. He's always center forward. So I realize I used Wood and tip in the same video. Apologies. Apologies. Because can't help it. I can't believe none of us have got Woodman on the pod so far. It might change this week if I do sell Haaland. Wood is somebody I am looking at. I will talk to you guys about the transfers a little bit later, but it's a pure consensus. And now, again, the weird thing is, in terms of some projection sites like Fix and Review, Calvert-Lewin is actually the second and the first. So make of that what you will. Now, before we talk about this week and the watch list and my team, I just wanted to talk to you guys about the Champions League pick and pool that Sleeper are offering. We spoke about it a couple of videos earlier. Now, we all have the usual pick'em league in which you have to choose the correct result every week for our Discord and for our open to play enter league. You can those QR codes are on the right, and as usual, we'll be giving away a jersey to a manager of the month in an open league and three free jerseys to the guys who join our Discord. You can become a member by going to patreon.com/slash the FPL Wire or through YouTube. We have a lot of other benefits, including a stats video and Q&A for members Thursday and a great Discord to hang out. So I would highly recommend a lot of other benefits. Now, the Champions League, now what's interesting is the prizes are given every match day. That is over the Tuesdays and Thursdays. And as you can see, the top 1, 2, and 3 of each pool share 1,000 plus USD worth of prizes. Last match day, they gave out PS5, Switch, Apple, AirPods. Same league as Premier League Pick'em. You don't have to pick the score, just the correct result. And the way I look at it, right? I don't play UCL fantasy. It's just a bit of engagement. Look at the matches, you predict the matches, compete with your friends and all this stuff. And this is completely free to play. There's no gambling involved. It's available in all countries across the world. So why not give it a go? It's a giant QR code you see just below the Champions League pick and banner. So get joining, start playing, and hopefully you win a PS5. Now, getting now closer to this week, the usual ROP T numbers. Let's have a look at the top teams for goals now. I think let's go to the next graphic. It explains it a bit better. Liverpool are well ahead of City. I guess at home you would expect them to be, and they're playing Brighton. We know that high line can be susceptible on the counter. So 2.55 for Liverpool, City up there, Tottenham also up there, Fulham, which again enhances the appeal of Jimenez. Chelsea, Man United will be interesting now that they've sacked their manager. Arsenal, Ipswich, Forest again up there. Villa's projections are a bit lower, but Everton about mid. Again, makes you consider keeping Calvert-Lewin. In terms of clean sheets, again, the odds are not spectacular. This week, Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal are right on top. Forest are in fourth. Fulham's odds are pretty good. Ipswich, I think it's one of the highest odds they've had this season, but none of us are playing an Ipswich defender who isn't Leif Davis, right? Palace, I think these odds again will shift a little bit with the injury to Eze. I feel much better about playing Ait Nouri this week. And again, Mikalenko, this with Everton's odd 24%, is not a bad substitute if Gabriel goes missing this week. Tottenham 24% is at same odds as Southampton. This gives you a bit of perspective on how the bookies view the Spurs defense. Looking at match odds to see which matchups are possibly the most lopsided. Arsenal at 50% I think is reasonable. Newcastle is a tough game. Bournemouth versus Man City, just 63% for Man City. And this is again, I think these odds were updated on the 30th. As you can see, the games took place last night after these odds were released. So I think this will probably drop even further with the injuries that City have had. I'm guessing it'll probably go to 58, 60, something like that. Ipswich are the favorites to win at home. Liverpool, of course, as you see, are regarded as the most favorable fixture this week with a 70% win chance. Then you have Forest, Fulham, and Tottenham. So that's probably where you should be targeting your transfers and potentially your captaincy as well. Again, captaincy projections from Sertalp. Salah right on top, 7.39. Haaland not too far, 6.82. Palmer, Saka. And then Eze obviously is now out, so he goes from there. But again, it's all unanimous for Salah, but it's not too far. You can see the other projections, it's like about maybe 10% off for Haaland in Scout and Review, but other ones is 4, 5. So it's really not, it's not a necessarily a 1 week big split. And you have to keep in mind Haaland plays Brighton the week after anyway. Now, look at the fixture difficulty as usual before we visit the watch list. Wolves right on top, then you have Ipswich and Brentford, and which is why I mentioned I still think Vissa is a good pick. It's not too late to get him. The only bad fixture there you see is Villa, and then again, if you have Rogers, you can rotate him in that time. Leicester, Everton, again, good fixtures up to game week 12 at least. You can afford to give Calvert-Lewin those 3 weeks. Apart from that, Arsenal fixtures get good around 12. Manchester United, after they have Chelsea, they have Leicester, Ipswich, Everton, Arsenal, and Forest. So around game week 11, bringing in a Manchester United player does make sense. Recently announced, I think Anjorin won't be taking charge till game week 12. That's the Ipswich game. So, but we don't know what he would be playing, right? Let's say you could buy Garnacho. You think Garnacho could be a winger. The new guy could stick him on as wing back, and you could play with Rashford inside, maybe Bruno as like a part of the dual tens. I don't know that yet. So if I was buying United, I think the safest pick would be Bruno. So Semenyo's fixtures obviously get better from game week 11 as well. That's why we've held him. Let's look at the watch list then. No change in the goalkeepers, Sells, Pickford, and Onana. In defense, Trent has made a re-entry. He is back there. Guardiol, Nuri, Lewis. And I put Dallo in there. I know it's a bit early, but I think Dallo will be the one of the guys to benefit the most from this new manager's wing back system. He really likes the wing backs to attack. And I think Dallo could be one we need to bring in a couple of weeks. Wing backs are just fantastic for FPL. In midfield, obviously, as you guys know, Salah and Haaland will not be featuring on this watch list. So Palmer is there right on top. Garnacho, again, keeping the new manager bounce in mind. I wanted to stick Bruno in there, but that would probably get too much hit. Bowen, Bumo, and McNeil up top. Now, the forwards, these aren't necessarily in order of priority. Solanke arguably doesn't deserve to be in there. He should probably be in fifth. But Wood, Vissa, Cunha, and Jimenez, I think, are great picks. You couldn't really go wrong with any of them today. Now, this is my team. As I'm set up now for game week 10, I have one free transfer and 1.1 million in the bank with Flecken in goal. Ait Nouri, Gabriel, and Lewis. Apologies, it shows Mikolenko's image over there. I forgot to interchange them. Saka, Bumo, Rogers, Palmer, Haaland, Solanke, and DCL with Mikolenko, Semenyo, and Greaves on the bench. Again, that's Nouri starting over Mikolenko, but Mikolenko I think will probably come in if Gabriel will miss out, which we don't know yet. And again, Arteta isn't going to tell us on Friday. So I will likely just start Gabriel with Mikolenko having to come on. I don't think Gabriel would come on as a sub anyway, right? So now the tricky part is now if you really had only just two premiums in your team, let's say you have only a Haaland and a Son or a Haaland and a Palmer. I can totally understand the appeal of losing Haaland to get to the third premium, but in my case, right, I've already taken the money out of defense. I already have Saka, Palmer, and Haaland as my three premiums. So do I necessarily need to move Haaland over there for Salah? And that would be for a hit for this week, right? The move would probably be something like this. I have two options. Now I can potentially move Solanke and Saka to Salah and Wissa. Now this would give me Salah, Palmer, and Haaland, who I think are the best three premium options to keep. But Saka is also a very good asset at 10 million around game week 12, 13. I think we'll all be looking at our teams and looking at ways to get Saka. So this feels a bit short term. I'm not sure that this necessarily pays off. Solanke has a good fixture the week after. So I'm not really feeling this one. Selling Saka does not feel right, even though the next two fixtures aren't great. The other option would be to sell Haaland for a hit. Now with Cunha coming in, then Semenyo would be going out for Salah. Now I could also do something like Jimenez, right? Now if I go for a 6.2 forward instead of Cunha, that gives me enough money to upgrade Semenyo to Bruno Fernandes when Fernandes plays Leicester in 11. So that would give me a midfield with all five penalty takers: Bumo, Bruno, Saka, Palmer, and Salah, with something like Jimenez, Solanke, and DCL, who I can sort out in 12, 13, 14, etc. So that again does have huge appeal. But the way I'm leaning right now is I think I'm going to roll a transfer and assess this next week with this 11 which we had earlier, which you guys saw. So let me know what you guys think. Lot to think about, and I definitely see the appeal of the move now. If anyone has already moved on Haaland for Salah, I think you might have made the right move. I'm not fully convinced by it, but I'm definitely leaning more towards it now than I was Monday on the pod because City are just pretty much on their last legs. The injuries are massive. They will take its toll. I don't see them necessarily blowing out teams, but they are the champions for a reason. And champions, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I do think they could be galvanized by all these injuries. So I do want to give it at least one game week to assess. But this is potentially the biggest swing game week. I think if Bournemouth now gives City a game, they keep them to a few, like maybe one goal or two, and Liverpool score 4 or 5, Salah goes big, and Haaland gets just one return. This could be something like, 20, 25 point swing. This is the potentially the swinging week versus the week after, where Salah has Villa. Again, so that's why I mentioned if you have Sun for the Ipswich fixture next week, because Salah versus Villa, I don't think is as good as Haaland versus Brighton the week after. So the two kind of balance out. But if you have Sun versus Ipswich, then the move makes a lot more sense. But it's going to be close. I don't think I'll be doing any other moves. A lot more injury news. I'm also waiting for Solanke could potentially be injured, although they say he looked very tired. He was limping a bit. Could be exhaustion. We don't really know. Unless there are any injuries, I think I will hold, get some more information, and potentially even make 3 moves next week. Or if I get some other further injury news, or if just pretty much feel like it, I will post the whatever latest moves I make in the comment section of this video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I always forget, but please, guys, help us get this video out to more people. Hit that like button and help us grow our subscriber base. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.